Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So one of the most fascinating parts of this gig that I've got bringing you a radio show every night is I get to meet some fascinating people. And one of the most fascinating people I've met over the course of the last year and a bit is Gina Cody. Gina Cody has got an amazing personal story, which we talked about, and we'll talk about a little again tonight, where she came to Canada and grew her career, first of all, in engineering, and then built her own company and was very successful in that. And then when she sold it and made some money, she invested in being the benefactor for a school of engineering at Concordia University in Montreal. She's got some very powerful ideas about women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math that we'll undoubtedly talk about. But today, she posted a very heartfelt post on LinkedIn about the 14 young women who tragically lost their lives to an hateful anti-feminist shooting at the École Polytechnique in Montreal, December 6th, 1989, 32 years ago. And her words about the memory, both of that date and her hope for the future were very impactful. And so, Gina, I wanted to interview you tonight and ask if you can repeat some of the words that you had to say today. Tell me, what is your memory and what is your hope?
My memory is a sad day, obviously, in the history of Canada, a tragedy for every human being, and not only for women, for men and all of us, for people or women being shot at the university just because they were women and studying engineering. So that was the notion of the event. How it impacted me, obviously, it left a very, very deep scar that I think will stay there forever. This event happened the year I graduated and I got my PhD in 1989 from Montreal, from a school not far away from École Polytechnique. So the tragedy that involved these 14 women, young women who passed away just for the sake of being in the engineering school, gave all of us a notion that women do belong to engineering and STEM program, and they should be there. And the reason that we are still talking about the issue is that the numbers are still low. And you mentioned of my giving to the Concordia University and renaming of the Faculty of Engineering and Computer Science after me. And it wasn't just for me. I wanted to represent a woman that can stand for the equality in the STEM program for women and men. Now, when you talk, and it happens all the time, when I talk with the young women and students at the university, at the faculty, they feel that they belong. And this whole notion of belonging is extremely important, especially in a day like this, that as women, we all belong to engineering and computer science.
You said in your post that this attitude toward females, this sexism and misogyny and hatefulness still exists today. Do you believe that?
Absolutely, it does. It has improved, but this is still there. And we see that on our daily basis. But I have a lot of hope. It's not that we haven't moved forward. We definitely have moved forward over the 32 years, but have we done enough? And my answer is no.
If we haven't moved that much forward, we haven't done enough. So what more should we do, and how do we do it?
We need to encourage our young children, our young women, girls, to get into a STEM program. And it's not just because we want them to get into engineering, because it's the profession of future. We are in fourth industrial revolution. If our women don't get into a STEM program, they're going to fall further behind. That's my notion. They need to get involved. And your audience out there, they need to encourage their young girls and students to be active and get into a STEM program, because they're smart enough, they're good enough. They're not missing anything. They're just not being encouraged enough at home, at school, by their teachers and their parents. That is what we need to change.
We're chatting tonight with Gina Cody. She's co-chair of the campaign for Concordia, Next Gen Now. She is a really unbelievably interesting individual. She's the retired CEO and owner of CCI Group, where for 25 years, she built a very successful consulting engineering company. Before that, she worked in consulting engineering for other companies. She's got a PhD in building engineering from Concordia University and a master's degree in engineering and a Bachelor of Science degree in structural engineering from the Sharif University of Technology. She has donated a significant amount of money to Concordia University and had the new School of Engineering named after her. And she spoke out today about what happened, the tragedy that happened 32 years ago at the École Polytechnique. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Gina and a little bit about her story, her inspirational story in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So 32 years ago yesterday in École Polytechnique, a gentleman, not a gentleman, that's the wrong word, a shooter came in and shot 14 women that were at the engineering school. And it was a tragedy. And today, Gina Cody posted about it in a very heartfelt a video that she posted on LinkedIn about her memories of that day and her hopes for the future. Gina Cody, 25 years, built a very successful consulting engineering company, sold it, and I guess used some of those proceeds to give some money to Concordia University to build a new school of engineering. Gina, can we take a step back? Tell us a little bit about your story, your own personal story, because when I heard it, I was quite fascinated by it. You came as an immigrant to Canada, is that not correct?
That's correct. I came during the revolution in Iran in 1979, and I had only $2,000 in my pocket, Brian, and I didn't even have money for my tuition. I arrived in Montreal, and I was supposed to go to actually another university, and my brother who had just finished engineering at Concordia, arranged for an interview between me and this professor at a university named Cedric Marsh. I met him within an hour. He looked at my marks and he said, "We will give you a scholarship." So within a moment of that discussion, my worries were all gone and I had a scholarship and life just changed within a few hours. And I right away registered at the university and started my master and then PhD. Then I came to Toronto and I started my own business and grew it.
So how unusual was it for a female and an immigrant female to be in a PhD for engineering at that time?
It was not that common. The numbers were very low. The fact that I was the first woman graduating in building engineering, it says that the numbers were low and not encouraging, especially in PhD program. I don't remember any other women in the PhD program at the time.
So not that many. In other words, none.
That's at that time that I was there was none. Yes, that's correct. And but I never felt out of place, to be honest. The university accepted me. I was always brought up to be quite vocal in a male-dominated environment. Just give you a quick story. When I was 16, my dad, who had a boys' high school, had me teach to the boys 14 to 15 years old math during summer. So, and he used to say, if you can manage boys that age, you can manage anybody in your life. So that gave me that notion that I can survive in a male-dominated environment, and I was very comfortable. So for me, it was just usual, a daily operation. But when I got into construction and my own consulting firm, I was always the only woman. I went to a conference in the early 80s. I was the only woman in 700 attendees. And when the MC started the program, said, "Lady and gentlemen," I still remember that word. So it was very uncommon. And the notion of me through the years, I didn't suffer for that. I thought it was what it was, but I knew that we need to change it. And my way of changing was when I donated to the university and they renamed this school. It was just, I wanted a woman represent a faculty of engineering and computer science. So all the girls and young women who enter the school, they feel they belong. It's not out of place for them. And also for those people that the whole incident occurred and they felt that women don't belong into engineering, it was a straight no. We are here, we are not going anywhere else, and we are going to be very strong, and we are going to be equal in this area. The notion of, in law, in medicine, women have really have taken their own place, and they have shown that they belong to the profession. Unfortunately, in the STEM program, women are not as active as they should be, and I want to encourage that. And hopefully your audience will be encouraged by your program today, even though it's at the anniversary of a tragic day, but we are moving forward. We want to send a message of hope to everyone out there that we can do better and we should do better. We are a country that we get united, and whenever we decide to do something, we do it very well. And this is one of those that we should do very well.
Someone that murders in cold blood 14 people because they're female. They weren't just people, they were females that he went out specifically to murder, is someone that is very different than someone that just doesn't encourage females to be involved in STEM, isn't it?
It goes beyond that. His notion was because he couldn't get to engineering, he had some backgrounds, some obviously a mental issue. It goes beyond a normal person. It's not that, it's an act of violence, and it is gender-based. And that's one of the issues that we need. Still, act of violence based on gender occurs, whether it is female or other genders. We see a lot of act of violence against LGBTQ today. So those are still ongoing, and we need these type of tragedy has to remind us how important it is for us to educate our children that we cannot tolerate this, and we have to teach them. We saw the event a few years back in Toronto on Yonge Street, where the guy went on the sidewalk and tried to run over with a van, just killing women. That was another tragedy.
Why do you think this, violence against women exists? What does it stem from?
I think the weakness of the other party, but it's a notion of betterment probably, or a notion that I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't answer that question. But obviously there is an inherent problem, and it still exists because when women still try to get to promotions, there is still this unconscious bias still within every human. I just give you a statistics that is going to shock you. In 2019, a study was done by United Nations Development Program on the bias against women, and 90% of the population around the world had some sort of bias against women. And when they did that study in Canada, the ratio was 51%, and that 51% wasn't just men. It was equally divided, 51% women and 51% men. They had some sort of bias against women. So that is
bias against women in that what, they couldn't have a job, or they couldn't be leaders, or
they're not as good as men for certain jobs, and you see that all the time. So there is, when you ask a number of questions, there's bias comes out of it. And there's still some women, they think that they're not good enough. So that is something you ask. Even south of the border, they were talking about having a woman president. No, women are not as good to be president as men are. So these are all the issues that exist.
How do we solve that? Are you a believer in affirmative action? How do you actually solve and address these
I think
issues?
it's an unconscious bias. We have to fight, and we all have unconscious biases. We all have some form of biases, and these biases are daily. Every day we are encountered with a race that we don't like, or a race that makes an action or does something that doesn't pleases us. We take an unconscious bias against that person. And women, unfortunately, are 50% of the population, and also are the notion of many biases when it comes to the society, because they haven't seen them as role model. They haven't seen women in a position of powers. And the more they see that, the more they get used to understanding and accepting women as leaders. You know, when you don't want to be something that you haven't seen there. So the more there are, the easier for people to accept them.
I find it interesting that you say that females themselves are biased against females. I interviewed a female, who said that one of the people that discouraged her from trying to achieve more was her mother. And that the cultural bias was that she got pressure to sort of follow in her mother's footsteps, which was to be a mom and a housewife, get married young, and dedicate herself to raising children. Do you think there's this cultural bias that we have to address?
The cultural bias definitely has to be addressed, and hopefully that is something that as schools and by program like this, your audience are listening now, and hopefully they realize that, look, a young woman came from Iran with $2,000 in her pocket. She succeeded. She got her PhD. She had her own company. She donated a large amount of money to, and I do a lot of philanthropy work. So we can and we should be encouraging our girls and women to excel rather than follow a routine that was before. Actually, Brian, my mother was the person who encouraged me the most. She used to say, for a woman to succeed has to be independent, and that independence for women come through education. So she's the one that pushed me from childhood to study hard and try to succeed in what I do, because she never finished high school, married young, and had children young. And for her, that independence was extremely important. And she wanted to instill that in me and my sister. My sister became a successful dentist. I studied engineering and finished my PhD. But that is a notion that if women out there feel that their dependence didn't give them much of success, they shouldn't want that for their children. Their daughters should be independent. And to me, independence comes by women standing on their own, and they have to get educated to be able to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read this story once that suggested that the best birth control was education. The best thing against particularly teenage pregnancy was education, and that in different countries in the developing world where you started to educate females, teenage pregnancies, large families, childbirth, et cetera, all declined, and females became more a contributing part of the work part of society, not that they weren't working at home, but that the employed part of society. They still ended up having kids, but they had just a few kids rather than a whole bunch of kids, and they had them later on in life. Is that a good trend? Absolutely.
To me, for women, to me, education is an equalizer. And when I talk to groups of women, I always say education is more important even for women, because when you have an education, an institution has given you a stamp of approval. That puts you in a level playing field. And I always say that women don't need a special treatment. We just need level playing field. We want to be considered equal, not that we have to do better to be accepted, to be equal.
We're chatting today with Gina Cody. She is a very impressive lady. She immigrated to Canada with $2,000 in her pocket from Persia, from Iran, came to Canada, got her master's, got her PhD, got a consulting job, started her own consulting company. She ran it for 25 years, sold it, and took some money and gave it to Concordia University, who named a school of engineering after her. And she's now speaking out very vocally about women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Gina in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Gina Cody. Gina is co-chair of the Campaign for Concordia, Next Gen Now. she has a school of engineering named after her at Concordia University. She's a very impressive lady. For 25 years, she ran a company called CCI Group. It was a consulting engineering company. You went in and attested to the structural viability of buildings. Did you not?
That's correct. I looked at all kinds of buildings, and my firm was active on all kinds of issues relating to buildings. That's correct.
How does a female in a very male-dominated industry for 25 years build a successful structural engineering consulting company?
I guess you give them a good service. I always said, actually, one of the most important thing was, because I was the only woman when I attended many meetings, I was the only woman in the room, I had to be good. And that gave me a notion that there was this biases that also the women are not as good. But when you are good and you say the right thing and you are prepared for your meetings, and they respect that, and also they remember your name. And because when you, from all the other men, I stood out. So they remembered me. And that was, I always say that, you can turn a negative into a positive. It will work for you. These are challenges of life that gives you courage to carry on and make better of yourself. And that notion of being the only woman in the room gave me the courage of always being right and trying to do my best at what I did, because I knew that there was an expectations of me to fail. So I am not there to let them do that. And so therefore I have to.
I think there was expectations that you would fail.
I believe so. And it's just that bias against women. And but on the other side of the coin, when you are good, they remember it and then they trust you. And trust is not something that is easily gained in any industry. And that was extremely valuable for me and for my colleagues. So that notion of education also, I think it's very important. The fact that I had a PhD in building engineering, I believe that gave me another tool that I could say. There was many times that my assistants would get calls from clients that they wanted to speak with the boss. And she would transfer the call to me and I would answer. And again, they would ask me, okay, no, I asked to speak with the boss. She thought I was the assistant to the assistant, I guess, or whatever. And I said, no, I'm the boss. And when I told them I had a PhD in building engineering and how can I help them, that got their attention and their respect. So that notion of bias was there, but the education gave me the ammunition to protect myself and also to prove myself.
You said that we're in a fourth industrial revolution and that we need to get females involved in STEM because they'll be left behind if they're not because of this fourth industrial revolution. Tell me, what is the fourth industrial revolution and how is it going to impact us?
A fourth industrial revolution is the era that we are living. It's the era of technology that is connecting all of us. It's Internet of Things that we are all talking about. It's artificial intelligence. We see smart cities that we are all speaking about, advanced manufacturing, which is all robots and going to the next notion. And all of these technologies rely on STEM fields that you need science, technology, and mathematics. Everything is evolving. Even medicine, you cannot have any operation without the devices that the engineers built, without even the valves and all of the issues that come. Even when you're developing vaccine, without the engineers, they cannot be there because all the analyses are done through the machineries that are quite advanced. And this is the era we are living. It's the era of connectivity, of technology. And if women are not gaining access to this technology and not learning how to operate them or fix them, there are a few issues. One is that the technology is built for those who build them. for example, one of the issues that I constantly speak about, the car safety features are all built for average male size. So because of that, when women get into accident, they are 50% more in danger of getting seriously injured.
50% more in danger. 50%.
Yes, yeah, because the safety seat, the seat belts, all of them are made for average men. It's not, I'm very petite. It's not going to serve me. I'm not the size of a 170.
So some car companies should say designed for safety for females.
They should design them. They should take everybody into account. But it's simpler to take one sample, one model, one mannequin, and they put that in the car. And they do all the tests for that average person. Not for every, now Volvo and other companies have started to modify that, but the average one is not. Look at artificial intelligence, when they developed the artificial intelligence for facial recognition. And these are the programs that are being used by the police and security agencies for finding criminals or other surveillance issues. They are based on data provided from the mainly white male or female. So when they do the face recognition on Black, Indigenous, or minorities, they are wrong by factor of 10 or 100 times. These are dangerous issues, and the police agencies are using these artificial intelligence face recognition programs. And why this is happening? Because the people who are developing these programs are using data that is based on that available data. So women have to get involved in this so that all the data gets minorities. When we talk about diversity, it's not just for the sake of diversity, it's just making everything safer for everyone and equal for everyone.
So how do you encourage females to get involved in STEM? What are you doing about it?
What I'm doing about it, I constantly speak. Wherever I get a chance, I speak about it. I think the encouragement has to come from parents at home, from teachers at school. Our society has to encourage it. Our schools have to be more welcoming, because people, the women get into these programs, they feel outnumbered, and not everybody is as strong as I was and stood up. A lot of them quit. They can't take the pressure. And then when they finish that, they get into the workforce. That sexism still exists. It doesn't go away overnight. So they have to put up with that type of behaviors continually. So we need to change constantly. We need men as allies to speak up for us. If they see they see discriminatory issues or spoken about their female colleagues, they have to speak up, not about just their sisters and mother. They have to speak up about any female that they see, so we can change the society as a whole.
What do you think of the Me Too movement?
I think it has been extremely helpful. You see all of the issues that we wouldn't have touched 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was women couldn't dare to speak up. Now they have the courage because of the movement. And when we talk about it, it becomes a notion that people are hearing, and people want to hear it, whether they're male or female. They want to know about the issue so they can address it. By throwing it and sweeping it under the carpet is not going to go away. We are putting too much under the carpet. Now the carpet is too heavily loaded underneath. So the Me Too movement had to happen because the issues were happening, and also the social media. I think the social media has been, there's a lot of bad things about it and a lot of great things about the social media. And because of the connectivity of the world, people, women and men, can speak up and understand the deficiencies in our society so that we can address them. If you don't know about them, we are not going to address them.
Were you subject of sexual assault or inappropriate approaches or comments or things like that?
Approaches and comments, obviously, yes. I think most women have been. Did it affect me? No, not at all, because I have been always very strong in my opinions and my stance. So it wouldn't affect me. But if I didn't have the parents I had who gave me that encouragement, I had 3 older brothers, maybe that helped me. I was the youngest woman, so I had to stood up to those 3 big guys. So maybe that helped me. But a lot of women are not as strong as I am. And to expect them to stand up, I think sometimes maybe too much for them.
And also, it seems like you had a male mentor at the very first school in Canada that you went to that was helpful. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. My professor was a mentor throughout all my life. He was there, he supported me. And in fact, anytime we had any tours of the university's laboratory, I was always there because they wanted to show that we have women working on this really, and I was working on shaking tables, and I was building really, really construction and very male-oriented type of structures. But the university encouraged me to stand up and speak up with the audience who were visiting the university, because they were proud of having a woman handling the issues. And that was a notion that gave me a lot of strength, hope, and encouraged me throughout my life. And that's why I'm so active at the university, because I was grateful for what I received.
Is the female brain the same as male brain, as adequate in dealing with mathematical issues?
Absolutely. There is no reason to doubt it, that there is any difference. And we are the same. Physically, women may be a little bit weaker when it comes to lifting a heavy weight from the ground, but we are not in that era anymore. The physical labor is gone. So if they needed somebody in the construction to dig a hole and women were weak on digging a hole, we are not talking about that type of force into our industry. We're talking about the brain, and brain of women are very good. And there are many Nobel Prize winning women. There are women who have won, actually a woman won the mathematics award, and she was Persian. So there are a lot of women that are excelling. It's just the numbers are low. We need to work on the numbers.
So let's talk about some of the keys to success. So one is your parents encouraged you. 2, your older brothers encouraged you, if maybe not always from a positive standpoint, but you had to stand up to your older brothers, I guess, is what you were saying. You had a male mentor that encouraged you. What else? What are the other keys to your success and would be successful for other females looking for a future in technology?
I think to have a right partner. I always encourage women, because one of the questions I always get asked when I attend and give keynote addresses all the time is how women can balance their work and life. I have never had a man ask me that question. How do you balance work and life? So I think if you choose a right partner, that gives you a lot of leeway to succeed, because there are nights that you have to work late at work. There are travel you have to do. So I think the partnership has to be a real partnership. Women have a tendency of taking a lion's share of house chores, lion's share of taking care of the children, all of that type of work. I think if it is equally shared between men and women in a household, my husband definitely have been an extreme supporter of me throughout my career. Without him, I probably would not have succeeded the way I did. So that is another important aspect of life for women. And I think for any man, they need a good partner as a wife as well for them to succeed.
And it makes life a little bit more enjoyable too.
Absolutely.
We're chatting today with Gina Cody. We're talking about women in STEM, and we're also talking about the massacre in Montreal at L'École what was it called? I apologize.
L'École Polytechnique.
Polytechnique, I apologize. Yes, 32 years ago. We're going to come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Gina Cody. Gina is a very impressive lady. She immigrated from Iran when she was young, $2,000 in her pocket. She came to do a master's degree in engineering, which she did, but at a different university because she connected up with a mentor and a professor. She then did a PhD. She then started a consulting engineering, structural engineering company for 25 years. She ran that company, became very successful, sold it, made some money, and donated a substantial amount of money to Concordia University to have a school of engineering named after her. And she's now a very frequent speaker on females in STEM and the importance of everyone getting involved in STEM, given the fourth industrial revolution. Today, or yesterday, I guess I should say, was the 32nd anniversary of the Montreal Massacre in École Polytechnique in Montreal. And Gina posted a very impactful, emotional video on LinkedIn that I read and saw about that. Gina, why do you want to do it? Why did you want to remember what happened 32 years ago?
This tragedy is probably one of the worst tragedies in the history of Canada when it comes to mass shooting. And it happened because it was a violence, gender-based violence against women in engineering. And for me, remembering the day is an important issue because not only for the tragedy that it was, but also what can we do to change the future for our women and young girls who are coming into the universities and to the society as a whole. So we need to make better. Have we done? And my message was, have we done enough in the past 32 years since the tragedy? And I believe we haven't done enough. We need to do better. We need to create an environment that is welcoming to women, especially, as you mentioned, during the fourth industrial revolution, the era that we are living in, and the future that is ahead for our young women and girls coming to the society. They need to get to these STEM programs. They need to get into the engineering program and computer science programs so that they can succeed in life. And they can be independent, and they can be in charge of their own destiny. And for women to be equal, they have to get into these programs, otherwise they will be left behind. The notion of working in jobs that doesn't need education are gone because robots and the technology is going to replace any jobs that is simply can be done by robots and other means. So we need to use our brains, and then to do that, women need education.
Many people use this opportunity to talk about violence with guns as well, and looking for some sort of a ban against guns or restrictions against particularly long guns, because that's what was used in this massacre. What do you think about that issue?
That's absolutely important. I don't think we need guns. Why do we need guns? In a safe society, you shouldn't need guns. Why do we have police? They are the ones with the ammunition. We don't, as civilians, we are not supposed to have. And I strongly believe in banning guns, and hopefully we can bring a stronger rules and regulation against people carrying gun or having gun. It's totally unnecessary, especially when people keep them in their homes. Why?
Gina Cody, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your contribution to Concordia University. Thank you very much for speaking out about women in STEM and being such a eloquent, articulate, passionate, visible spokesperson for the importance of women, females getting involved in STEM, both education as well as employment, and being an inspiration for people as to how they can be an immigrant to Canada, and run a successful business and give back to their community. So I want to thank you very much for everything you've done
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity and the platform to send my message across. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. I'm on every night, Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online talking about technology on www.saga960am.ca. My podcast and video casts are available after the fact on briancrombie.com. And you can get all of my videos or podcasts on briancrombie.com, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Apple Podcasts, Audible Podcasts, and on Speakeasy. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Good night, everybody.